Hey, welcome back to Addicted to Faith, the last Storyteller podcast. I wanted you guys to do something. I wanted to take my hand for just a minute and walk down a path with me back in history, back to a place called Jim's Coffee Shop on San Pedro and Hildebrand Avenue in San Antonio, Texas, spring of 1974. And it was our gathering place. There was seven of us. We called ourselves the Magnificent Seven. One evening we were sitting there and we were discussing a book that a couple of us had been reading. It was by a new writer at the time, and his name was Stephen King. And he had just released a book called Carrie. I just finished it. I finished it the night before. And one of the other fellows, I can't recall which one now, though, I knew he was reading it. And I asked him, I said, well, did you finish it? And he told me no. He goes, I was reading it last night. He goes, I thought I'd finish it last night. He goes, it's a damn scary book. He goes, then sometime before midnight, my mom came in and turned the lights off. So I didn't get to finish it. He says
Mhm.
that he wanted to, but it was kind of scary. I could hear some relief in his voice just a little bit. And so I told him, I said, well, it's a good thing that you can't read in the dark. And he smiled. He goes, yeah, but I can dream bad dreams. That was, oh, I was a teenager, a young teenager, and I think that was the first time in my life I realized the power of words, what they can do, especially with a writer like Stephen King. Well, my guest tonight, he wrote a horror book. It's his first horror book, and it's a book really about words. The title of the book is Lexicon, and the author coming to us from Melbourne, Melbourne, Australia, A.W. Kellerman. Mr. Kellerman.
Hello.
Do you go by
Yes,
Angus?
that's me. Angus, yes, that's my first
Angus.
name.
Well, welcome to the Last Storyteller podcast.
Thank you for having me.
You betcha. So, the
Mm,
lexicon, I started reading it and haven't gotten
mm,
very far into it, but I was intrigued. I
mm.
wasn't sure what genre it was in.
Yeah,
uh,
yeah.
uh, until I started reading a little bit more and realized, okay,
Mm.
this is going to be a scary book. This was going to
Oh,
be.
yeah.
So,
Yep, yep.
so tell our listeners about the lexicon, about the characters in it, the plot of the story. We don't ever want to give too much away because we're here to sell books. It's your.
Yeah, yeah. Don't want to spoil anything for anyone, of course. Don't want to spoil the fun. Okay, so I think I'll start with um, where I got the. So this book that I've released, that I'm holding currently, it didn't exactly start as a novel. So it started as a short story that I wrote when I started writing 7 years ago when I was 17. And I'd gotten, I'd written a little collection of short stories. And I finished that collection sometime last year and I got it professionally edited. And then I got that back and in the time it was getting edited, I'd learned a whole lot more about how to improve my writing. And yeah, when I got it back, I was reading through the Lexicon short story. And with my editor's feedback and my own, from what I'd learned, I kind of looked at it and went, I can do better. I think this deserves to be expanded upon, right? Because I realized there's a lot of areas that were just kind of rushed, like the main character, Leo Morley. His development was very rushed. It was all telling in that short story. So yeah, I looked at it and I thought, I can do better. I'm gonna completely rewrite this and expand on all of this stuff organically. And then here we go, about 415 pages, 100,000 words later, and we've got a novel that I am very proud of.
And you should
So
be.
yeah, that's yes, yes. Well, it's been quite the undertaking to expand it into what it is now. It took at least, I don't know, 4 months, I reckon, of yeah, very hard work. But anyway, so yes, the characters. So as I said, our main character is Leo Morley. He's a history teacher in the whole book is set in a fictional country. I won't say why because that does become relevant. Um, Again, as you said, no spoilers. Yeah, he's a history teacher, and I'm pretty much just going to go into like a summary of the book here, I guess, um, without spoiling anything, of course. So Leo Morley is a history teacher, and he's he's in his mid 40s, right? He's kind of at a low point. He's like he lives alone. His parents have recently died. He doesn't really like his job. He's not doing too well, and he already struggles with like mental health problems and substances, mainly drinking. And he's just looking for more of a sense of purpose. And unfortunately for him, and probably for the rest of the world, he finds it. So, as part of the college that he teaches at, Bearbrass College, um, they invite him onto an expedition to go find an artifact that they've recently heard rumors about, an ancient book called the Lexicon, said to be hidden in a glacial cave. And before he's even gone on the expedition, he starts having these dark dreams that start speaking to him directly, because the lexicon, the book, is tied to a sleeping god that yearns to be awakened and can only do so by, I guess, like convincing a broken person to do its bidding. It's probably the best way I can put it. It doesn't quite like control anyone directly, but it can only commune through dreams, and it can really only speak to somebody's desire for great power. So pretty much that's as much as I can say before I start spoiling things.
Well, let's not spoil
Um,
anything. Um,
no, no.
Leo, you developed Leo's character early on,
Mm,
and I was reading it maybe in I can't remember second or third chapter where he
yep.
experiences this first nightmare, and the
Mm,
nightmare
mm,
is written in true horror writing style. You did an
yep.
excellent job
Yep.
of that. It
Thank you.
you read it and you get the images that you were trying to portray there very well.
Hmm.
I was, and at that by that early on in the book, I don't really know Leo very well.
Mm, yeah. Yeah.
I'm listening. He has this dream, and then the next day he's with a colleague, and she asked him if he's going on the expedition. And I
Mm,
stopped, and I'm thinking, Leo,
mm,
say no. It's like it
mm,
reminded me of a movie at the cinema, a horror movie, where you see the character walking along and they put their hand on the door, and you know there's something behind the
mm.
door, and you're screaming from your seat, "Don't open the door!"
Yeah,
And
don't
yet
do
he
it.
tells
Don't do
her,
it.
"Yeah," he
Yeah.
tells her, "Yes, I am going."
Mm,
But of course, if he
yeah.
hadn't, then your book would have remained a short story at that point.
Yeah. Wouldn't be very interesting. No.
Mhm. So it was in writing the book, you gave us the genesis of it as it starting as a short story or and part of a short
Yep.
story collection, and then it
Yeah.
grew into
Yep.
a full-fledged novel
Hmm.
that's on out in Amazon today and available
Hmm.
today. And we will be putting the links and everything in the show notes. But let me ask you a question about that writing process. As you took that short
Mm,
story and you were maturing it,
mm,
growing it into something larger. Now, I don't think the intent of a writer, many writers have been able to do that very successfully. Stephen King, as a matter of fact, is one that's done that a number of times.
mm.
And when you're doing that,
Yeah.
though, I don't think you're setting out to write a novel. I think you're setting out to complete an unfinished work. In this case, it was, of course, the lexicon. How did
Mm.
that process, uh, how did that go? I mean, what was the hard parts for you? What were the parts that just sort of flowed? Did you have to sit back? Did you have to rewrite any of the original short story?
Yeah. So to begin with the process, yeah, like I think I explained earlier, um, like I took my editor's feedback and my own like new experience with writing. Like I took a whole lot more. I don't really know what to put it. I did a lot more learning on how to improve my writing, and I became a lot more confident than the man who had written the Lexicon short story first, right? So I was going through the short story line by line, and I think I only made it a few pages into it out of, I think it's 100 pages long. So it's edging up against like novella, I suppose. But um, yeah, I was going through it page by page, and at some point I ran into a few lines that, like I said, just completely rush through his entire like upbringing and background and why he's so mentally disturbed and why he goes on to do all the terrible things that he does. And I read that and I thought, no, I can do better. So I think that took me a few days to kind of process like the the scope of how much I needed to improve on, to make this story one that I can be completely proud of, and yeah, to get it to novel length. To begin writing it, I just started with a blank slate because I had the short story 100 pages, and the way that it was written, trying to like just like write between those lines and fix it from what I had, that would have been incredibly difficult to like maintain like complete focus on where I'm up to and what needs to be worked on. So it was just easier to do from a blank slate and just go from there. And when I started doing that in this new text document, I wrote, I gave myself a new work ethic that I guess you could say I borrowed from Stephen King, because I did look up like his process, after I started reading some more of his books no, earlier this year. No, I started reading last year. Yeah, I like looked up his process and thought, okay, well, maybe there's some good pointers there. And one of them that I took was a minimum like word count per day. Now, given he does like 2,000 words, I thought that's a bit much for me. So I'll set myself a goal of at least 1,000 words a day, and I'm going to consistently write that at least 1,000 words every single day until I finished this draft of the novel. And I did that, and it took probably about a month and a half of every single day, weekends, after work, doesn't matter. And I'd shoot over 1,000 words some days. On good days, I'd get probably 3,000 words done. But definitely towards the end, I kind of plateaued and reached just 1,000 words every day. But yeah, it was about 37 chapters when I finished the second draft. And from there, I took a break, took about a week just to let it sit, just to, just like when I come back to it, I've got more like fresh eyes. And yeah, I did my proofreads where I read the entire thing, clean up the text, fix up the grammar. Um, and another thing was like to keep the tense present or consistent, sorry. So I've written this book in present tense. And when I started writing the novel version, I think part of it was in past tense, and just fixed that, made that consistent. But along the way, I wrote notes on larger things that didn't really work or were needed to be fixed. And then I'd go through it, like I'd proofread it another time just to make sure I didn't miss anything. And then, yeah, I would start on the third draft and implement those bigger changes. So I ended up writing another 5 chapters, um, here and there, like in the correct places, just to pad, well, not pad things out, but like to improve the pacing and to keep things consistent. Um, I don't think this is much of a spoiler to say, but there is like sort of a magic system in this, because I do read a lot of fantasy as well. Really like fantasy. Um, and yeah, I realized in the reading through the second draft, like for my notes and proofreads, I was like, there's kind of a magic system going on here. So that changed the way I approached the third draft. And I thought, I have to make this consistent. I have to like define the rules. I have to stick to those rules, and I can't bend things a little too much. So yeah, I proofread the third draft, and then got some feedback from people, and feedback I got was actually quite good. I was pretty proud of that. And yeah, at some point I reached out to a friend who's a best-selling author, James Islington,
Yes.
and he's referred me to his marketer, Gracie, who has been doing a lot of work for me to help me get it out. And well, I'm holding it now, and I'm on this podcast among other ventures to help get the word out. So yeah, that's where we're up to, I guess.
Well, Angus, I must tell you, I'm very impressed for someone.
Thank
You're
you.
not even a quarter of a century old yet.
No,
And you
no.
use words that require a writer, an author, requires discipline. And
Mm,
some of the things that you were talking about, setting a goal of number of words per day and
yeah.
sticking to the habit more so than the goal itself. If you come up with 998, you'll find two more words. And then if all of a sudden you
Mm,
find out that you've done 1,500, you keep going. It's the
yeah.
discipline of doing that. You also mentioned fresh eyes. I think this is one of the most important things that I had to learn over time. I would often write. I'm retired now, but so I can
Mm,
write whenever I want to write now. But before,
mm,
you know, I was I was still married and I still had kids at home, and the only time I could write was sometimes at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. And so I would,
yeah.
and then
Yeah.
the next morning I'd wake up and then I would, and believe it or not, back then I was actually using an old IBM OCR typewriter. And the next morning I would pick it up and I would read what I wrote. And it was almost immediate. It wasn't absolute immediate, but it was almost
Mm,
immediate. What that I learned what that caused me to do is read over something that was so fresh that if there was a mistake, if there was something broken in there, you talked about tenses. So
hmm.
often I would find myself on the same page of using past tense and present tense, especially when it came to dialogues. It was real easy to slip in.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
I saw
Yep.
that and I thought I got to quit doing that. I didn't understand the term
Mm,
fresh eyes back then. I've since learned what that means is be able to set that aside. All of those
yeah.
different uh, uh, habits that you're making right now. There's different disciplines that you're
Mm,
making right now. Even recognizing where there's a conflict in your story
yep.
caused by style. Yeah, I'd
Yeah.
asked you
Yeah.
before the before we started recording what genre it was in. It was horror because I thought at
Mm,
first in the description that it may be more along the like either folk tale type of stuff or even
yeah.
fantasy, just based on the
Mm,
description of it. Then I got into it. I
yeah.
said, well, it's not. It's neither one of those. I don't read a lot of fantasy. I do enjoy it, and I'm looking for all
Mm,
the words that you'll find in every fantasy book, and none of them were there. So I said, well, it's obviously not
yeah.
fantasy. But the little bit that's in there, the little bit of
Mm,
mixture of two genres that are in there, you were able to
mm,
meld together without it seeming like a desperate move to make a better story. I think you did a
yeah.
very, very good job on it. Now, you had mentioned that you
Thank you.
uh, there was editing in the past. Did you use an
Hmm.
editor for the lexicon? And was it published or was it self-published?
This is self-published. Um, I didn't go for my editor for the novel, mainly because the price of getting her to edit my collection was a lot more than I thought it would be.
Right.
Um, so yeah, I did want to save a little bit of money, but that's not to say that I didn't want to make sure that the quality was as good as it could be, because trust me, I care about that a lot. Um, and yeah, like I said, I set it down for maybe a week just to make sure that when I come back to it from the start and go all the way through it, that I can, yeah, like have fresh eyes on it, just to make sure that I'm coming to it with like as close as I can get to like another reader's perspective. And yeah, as the author, you can only do so much. Other people who don't know your story will pick up errors a lot better than you can. That's why we have editors. Like I said, I did get some feedback, and I took on their advice. They did have some criticisms for me, so I took those on as well.
Did you have beta
Um,
readers?
yeah, yeah, yeah. I
It's
had a few of them.
two other
Um,
words of advice for our independent authors, indie authors that are listening out there, especially the young ones
mm,
that are starting your first book, is get you a group of beta readers. The second is not really
yeah,
advice, but it's the truth. Is especially early on in your career, you're going to find out that editors make a lot more money than authors do. So
mhm,
think about
yep.
that too. Either become an editor
That is very.
or learn how to edit. And editing your own stuff is
Mm,
it's like having representing yourself in a court of law. It's not a good idea, right? So use the tool. There's so many different tools out there nowadays that can help you with that, or have friends that will help you with that. And I've got two good friends that I actually buy them red pens and to
mm,
go stuff and read through my stuff. And I tell them write it up
yeah,
as much as you can. It doesn't bother me as a writer when somebody finds
mm,
something, whether it's grammatical error
yeah,
or some kind of conflict in there, because it's
yeah,
easy. It's easy to miss out on those things.
mm, it is.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. I've read a lot of books this year, especially on books about writing, like how to improve it. And I just pulled one down. You probably can't read that, but Self-Editing for Fiction Writers by Rennie Brown and Dave King. This is, I think, essential writing for like learning how to do self-editing. Cannot recommend it enough. It's really helped me. Um, but like I said, you've got to get beta readers in there as well and get other people to read it because you know even going through this because I proofread this probably 5 times. Um, Even every time I went back through it with another proofread, I would find things that I somehow missed. And
Yes.
it's like, oh, how did I miss that? I went through the
Um,
entire thing. How did I miss this? And it's like,
yeah,
maybe it's just because your perspective changes by the time you reach the end. I'm not sure, but
it does.
you
No,
do.
it's very common.
Yeah.
I've got a dozen or more books out there, and I actually brag to
Mm.
people that it's my trademark now to have at least a couple of errors in every one. Because even
Yeah.
after it's released, I'll go and I get the author's copies usually first, and I'll
Mm.
run across something. It's funny. I was going to ask you, did you read
Mm.
Stephen King's book on writing?
Yes, I did.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good book. But one of the things I was
Mm.
reading, I can't remember which book it was. There's one that came out in the last couple of years. I was sitting on the sofa one night and I was reading his book. I've been a fan of his since Carrie came out in 1974. But
Mm.
I'm reading through it and there was a error in there, a
Mm.
typographical error. And I thought,
Yeah.
in Stephen King's book, there's an error. And I was actually doing a little victory dance in my living room, thinking, if he
Yeah.
can do it, I can do it. But I do caution people
Mm.
to be selective on that. Avoid some of the
Yeah.
ones that are out there nowadays. There's some out there, especially the AI generated corrective tools. Listen, I'm not afraid of AI and I'm not for it or
Mm.
against it. I'm fascinated by it, but it does not belong in the world of writing at all. Don't
Thank you.
depend on AI to do any of that stuff for you. It'd be better
No.
to
No.
do just like Angus talked about, of setting it
Mm.
aside for a while, a week or longer if you have
Yeah.
to, and go back with fresh eyes. Another good
Yeah.
trick that I learned that I'll share with you and with our other listeners is to actually read it out loud. Now, I do that and
Yes.
record as I'm reading out loud. And
Yes.
oh my goodness, you'll find so many places
Yeah.
where it should have been a pause instead of a period, or vice versa, and or
Yeah.
you'll just
Yeah.
start to hear things. I know in dialogue and writing dialogue, you and I didn't talk about it a whole lot, but in writing dialogue, a book I came out with
Mm.
a few years ago called Fatherless, I realized that two of my characters, they talked exactly the same. And I only
Mm.
realized that because I was speaking for them as I was reading it out loud. And I caught it early
Yeah.
on enough to be able to make just a slight change. Because I thought if I can catch that, surely a uh, a reader is
Yeah.
also going to do.
Yeah. Anyone else could. Yeah.
Yeah. So what's in your future?
Yeah. I've got another book. I've written two more first drafts earlier this year. Um, I do want to focus on horror because that is my favorite genre. However, I've got other books in mind. I've got probably 10 more book ideas that I haven't even touched yet. That I'm still developing them, still working on them. But I wrote a dark fantasy novel earlier this year. I want that to be part of like a series. I'll work on that at some point. I don't know if I'm quite ready to come back to it yet because of the scope that I have in mind for it. I've got like psychological thrillers in mind. I've got more horror books, of course. I've got like a sci-fi horror even. Because I think what's helped me a lot is to read not just like plenty of horror books, but to read other stuff too. Um, and that's like I said, this book kind of has a magic system in it because I've read so much fantasy, because I like fantasy as well. So, I got that extra element to make it a bit more unique. Um, yeah, that's that's helped me a lot.
I was
Um,
talking to a writer earlier. She writes romance novels,
yeah,
and she was
yeah,
talking to me about her latest book, and we were going through basically the same question answer scenario that you and I are going to.
mm,
And she got to talking about one part of her book. I asked her what was the hardest part of her book to write, and then I asked her
mm,
what was the not the easiest, but the best part for her to write. And she started telling a little bit of the story again without giving too much of it away. We want to sell
mm.
books. But she said, I read it, I wrote it, and I read it, and I wrote it again. And she goes, I read it again, and it made me cry. Her own writing. Does your writing, your own writing, does it ever scare you?
There were points where I had to stop my writing and just. There were points in writing this book that actually made me sick, made me feel nauseous, made me. I did actually cry a couple times. I'm not gonna lie, I did for a few scenes in here. I won't say what, but yeah, there were points that made me emotional, that made me feel sick, that made me even scared to turn the lights off.
Well, now let me tell you,
It's
if you're doing promotions, that's your tagline. When the
yeah,
writer can look into the camera and say, I had to turn the lights off based on my
mm,
own words. I really think that
yeah.
that's fantastic. Well, you've gained a fan for sure.
Thank you.
Uh, your book is on Kindle in
Yep.
hardcover and in paperback. It's also, and I tell my listeners all the time, it's
Mm,
on Kindle Unlimited.
yes.
And if you're a
It's
writer and you're not taking advantage of
mm,
Kindle Unlimited, then you're missing a good opportunity. I actually just clicked
mm,
on your book because
yep.
I don't want to be a hypocrite about it, of Kindle
Mm,
Unlimited. I can to get that loaded into mine.
yeah.
I was going to ask you about an author's page. It's another thing that I do recommend. You don't have one set up yet. Where can
Mm.
we
On the
find out?
Kindle version, yeah. I think I need to update that, yeah. Because I put one in the paperback.
Oh, you did.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I
And
think I thought I updated that on the Kindle. I might have to do that after this.
when
But I thought I did that anyway.
so we're going to put obviously the links to the lexicon, the Amazon links. Is there other places that folks can go? I know you have a Facebook page. That's how you and I hooked up. Other places that
Yeah.
folks can learn to go to learn more about you and follow your career, which I have a feeling is going to be a very exciting one.
Yeah. So far I'm just getting started. I've got a author account on Instagram. It's just AW Kellerman. Um, I've also got a Goodreads account. My book is up on there if you want to leave a review, or it gives you a link to Amazon as well. It also has other book websites, but it's not listed on them currently.
Are you getting any
Um,
traction on Goodreads?
Not at the moment. Last time I checked, I think there's one review there, but it hasn't shown up for me, so I'm not sure. Someone I know said that she left a review on Goodreads, but it
Yeah,
hasn't come up yet.
I've
So
actually got interview set up. I think it's in the first week of March with a
oh yeah.
Goodreads expert to, because I think it
Hmm.
is a good platform to have out there, but
Yeah.
it's another
Yeah.
very crowded platform. But she
Okay.
claims to be an expert on Goodreads and how to use that tool. Excuse me, how to use that tool. So. I'm going to test her
Mm.
expertise. I think that's in March.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
but
Yep.
definitely every place that you can get your book out. And the other thing that you've mentioned
Mm.
more than once in this interview is reading. Behind you is a bookcase filled with books. You mentioned reading. Guys, you
Mm.
got to be reading. If you're not
Yep.
reading more than you're writing, well, then
Yep.
you're making a mistake. No,
Hmm.
it's been a,
That's what's helped me improve vastly. I think that's the quality difference from when I started with short stories to now is started reading. This is overflowing with books. I have to put them sideways now because there's no room
how is
to
the
read.
just out of curiosity, how is
Mm.
the book market uh, in Australia? Uh, Here, almost all the smaller bookstores, especially since around the time of the pandemic,
Mm.
they've gone
Yeah.
away. I live in a small town, and
Mm.
there's one bookstore in this town, and she
Mm.
just opened up, I guess, within the last year. She
Yeah.
opened up a bookstore. But how is it there, down under?
um there's actually quite a good community for books for readers. I won't say that there's well, actually, no, there's quite a lot of bookstores. There's a chain bookstore in my town, like in the main street. Um, that's probably the only one in the town that I live because I'm only half an hour away from Melbourne, like on the
Right,
east side. In Melbourne itself, there's quite a lot of like really nice bookstores, like small ones, big ones, you name it. Like there's a lot of places to go. And the suburbs, like around Melbourne as well, there's some good ones there too. There's even some like a little further out as well, small local ones. It's pretty good. I think a lot of the Aussie readers have a little bit of they're spoiled for choice, I suppose. Um, yeah, it's good.
well, if that's the case, and I hope that some of that flows this way, and that bookstores
Mm,
start to come become someplace that people want to go
yeah.
again. And I
Mm,
I remember going to even the big chain ones like Barnes and Noble or something like that,
yeah.
and spending hours and they're just
Mm,
walking around. It's an incredible thing. Anyway, hey, it's been really great talking with you tonight. Again, all the links to your books, and I will try to link up your Instagram account so people can follow you there. Uh,
yeah.
let's sell some books.
Thank you for having me again.